As a kid, we all thought that SpongeBob was a silly cartoon, right? Bunch of fish talking, bonfire under the sea, even a wild sea bear appears out of nowhere. But now that we're older and rewatch it again, there are some disturbing details that lie beneath all the laughs and bubbles, something that only adults could notice. SpongeBob hits a little too close to home. The existential dread, the dead-end job, even some questionable jokes for a kids' show. Was SpongeBob actually made for kids? And if so, why do so many adults still relate to it more than ever? In 1999, Nickelodeon dropped a cartoon that looked like just another zany kids show. It had talking sea creatures, banging tropical Hawaiian music, and our daddy SpongeBob who was way too optimistic for his own good. But something was different. This show wasn't made by some studio exec trying to sell toys. It was made by a marine biologist named Stephen Hillenburg. Unlike most cartoons, especially the first season, SpongeBob didn't start with a script. Hillenburg and his team built episodes the old school way, using storyboards. They'd start with a loose outline, just 2 pages, or board, as a background. Then let the artists flesh out the scenes visually. Dialogue came later. This method gave the show a surreal, spontaneous energy. Think of it as you and your friends trying to make a comedy skit based on a single drawing at lunchtime. And the more you try to outdo each other's jokes, the weirder the jokes will be. This might be the reason why there are lots of subtle jokes in between scenes, because that's what happens in the office. Your random friends just can't stop slipping a weird joke in every time you come up with an actual story. But did you know? Early on, the executive at Nickelodeon insisted on making the SpongeBob character a kid in school to make it more relatable to kids, rather than an adult with a minimum wage job. Hillenburg stood his ground on SpongeBob's age and status. And as a way to compromise, he later made SpongeBob attend boating school with Mrs. Puff, in order to have an episode with a school background. These decisions later played a crucial part in world building. You see, since the show was based on a working man as a lead character, it gives us the setup of a co-working sitcom as the main premise of the show. It opens up many opportunities to slip in some adult jokes in the middle of conversation, just like your coworker would do. But the brilliance of Bikini Bottom is that they're walking on a light tread in between both worlds. On one side, they have a bunch of characters living the hard, monotone life of regular adults. But they all interact with each other by being as goofy as possible, just like a child would. Hillenburg always envisioned SpongeBob as an adult with a childlike enthusiasm, drawing inspiration from characters like Stan Laurel and Pee Wee Herman. He wanted SpongeBob to love his job at the Krusty Krab, mirroring the innocent optimism of someone who finds joy in everyday tasks. Meanwhile, sassy Squidward was every disillusioned artist trapped in a job he hates, the one that realized passion doesn't always pay your bills. Mr. Krabs was your stereotypical boss, cheap, greedy, and painfully corporate. His crustacean background also depicts that he's hard-headed, both literally and figuratively. And Patrick, he's your unemployed friend who will do the most random stuff on Wednesday. You just know he'll come up with something crazy. These weren't just cartoon characters, they were the special blueprints. Built for laughs, but grounded in something real. Something painfully familiar, especially once you hit adulthood. But the brilliance wasn't just in the characters. It was how the show walked the tightrope, making something that kids loved and adults couldn't stop watching at the same time. It's the duality of their comedy.
I'd sure like to go to this party, but I can't read the invitation.
Me neither.
Whoever sent this obviously has no idea about the physical limitations of life underwater. Well, might as well throw these in the fire.
To a kid, that line would just be a comedy about someone who was stupid enough to send an ink-written letter to the bottom of the sea. But if you're watching it as an adult, you start to see things differently. That line is also mocking the concept of the whole show itself. This is a show about sea creatures with a face, living the life of a human society. What do you expect? Episodes like Band Geeks, Nasty Patty, or Are You Happy Now explore failure, guilt, and depression as a main plot, but they do it in a way that's disguised as fun.
We hit the jackpot!
There are jokes about prison stereotypes, strip clubs, and existential dread tucked inside a show supposedly made for 8-year-olds. But they subtly fly under the radar unless you're old enough to catch them. And that's the genius of SpongeBob. It's not for adults, but it knows adults are watching. The humor is layered. Kids get the slapstick, adults get the satire. But let's be honest, If SpongeBob were just about jellyfish and Krabby Patties, it wouldn't still hit this hard. This show has opinions, especially about work culture.
Choose spatulas to increase productivity, Mr. Krabs! Faster, SpongeBob, faster!
Think about it. SpongeBob loves his job. He literally cheers about working the grill. And for what? Minimum wage, no benefits, and no proper days off. Mr. Krabs, meanwhile, is a greedy capitalist. He'd sell SpongeBob's soul for 62 cents and a coupon. All that dedication doesn't mean anything to him.
From now on, the Krusty Krab is open 24 hours a day.
It's played for laughs, obviously, but it mirrors real-life work culture. Cheerfully exploited labor, a heartfelt boss, and coworkers suffering in silence. Sad boy Squidward is stuck in a service job that actively kills his creativity, and he can't leave, because rent exists.
And what could be better than serving up smiles?
Being dead or anything else.
And these dynamic relationships between the working adults is a huge reason why SpongeBob SquarePants feels so relatable with the matured audience. Something that would be very hard to do if SpongeBob's character was a kid staying in school. Another example for this case is the episode Graveyard Shift. Mr. Krabs extends the Krusty Krab's hours to be open 24/7, purely for profit. SpongeBob and Squidward are forced to work the night shift. Sound familiar? Squidward begins telling horror stories just to mess with SpongeBob, specifically about the hash-slinging slasher. But things start getting weird. Lights flicker, the phone rings with no one there, a shadow figure appears. Until, plot twist, it's just a guy who was nervous about his job interview. But underneath the goofiness, it's a perfect parody of what overnight work does to your psyche. The hallucinations, the creeping dread, the absurdity of sacrificing sanity for a paycheck. And they have Nosferatu as a cameo for this? No kid would ever know Nosferatu. The reference is almost a century old. Heck, even I bet some of you adults in the early 2000s didn't know who this creepy guy was. Other times they were exploring anxiety for a plot. Like Rock Bottom, where SpongeBob takes the wrong bus and ends up in a place he cannot understand. It's dark, it's eerie, and no one speaks his language. It's funny in a way, but it's also panic-inducing. SpongeBob is isolated, confused, and helpless. He's trying to get home by any means, but everything is working against him. To a kid, this is just silly noises and creepy vibes. To an adult, it's anxiety incarnate. It's that stranger in a strange place feeling when you move to a new city, start a new job, or call customer service and the lady doesn't speak your language. This episode is equally terrifying for both kids and adults. What's even more genius is the social commentary for the episode of One Krab's Trash. Cheap-ass Krabs sells SpongeBob a soda-drinking hat for $10, then finds out it's worth $1 million. So naturally, he tries everything to manipulate SpongeBob into giving it back. The satire here is chef's kiss. It's about greed, capitalism, exploitation. And it ends with Krabs literally almost being dragged to the grave for trying to scam someone. This isn't just a gag, it's Looney Tunes with ethics. It's about how far people will go for money, and how SpongeBob's innocence accidentally destroys them. What ties all these episodes together isn't just the humor, it's that they have layers. There's surface-level chaos for kids, emotional or satirical depth for adults, and subtle, brilliant moments that reward rewatching. It's why it feels like the show naturally aged with us. Because it was never just for kids, it was for anyone trying to make sense of the world, whether you were 9 or 29. And the internet culture, it took it to a whole new level.
Well, I'ma head out.
Is this the Krusty Krab?
No, this is Patrick.
Even if you weren't watching SpongeBob, you were definitely seeing it on your social media. SpongeBob memes became emotional shorthand for burnout, stress, weird coworkers, depression, everything. SpongeLord Drip Pants absurdity translated into more than just a gag. The show became the internet's favorite therapist. And there's a reason SpongeBob is still one of the most memed characters on Earth. He's not just funny, he's relatable in a terrifying way. And for a while, SpongeBob was untouchable. The first 3 seasons are pure gold. Smart, strange, and unforgettable. By the time the SpongeBob movie came out in 2004, the series had reached its emotional peak. SpongeBob proves he's more than just a kid. He saves the day as himself, goofy, weird, and loud, and earns respect. Of course, with the help of his equally goofy friend. It feels like a finale, a beautiful send-off, the perfect arc. But then, the show kept going. and the unexpected became unavoidable. After season 3 and the first movie, Steven Hillenburg stepped away, and when he left, the tone of the show shifted a lot. Later seasons got louder, faster, sillier. Episodes leaned into absurdist comedy and slapstick over character development. SpongeBob became a maniac, Squiddy became a punching bag, and Patrick turns to a walking rock. But the most tragic thing is that the jokes are specifically made for kids. If you remember our previous video talking about the downfall of SpongeBob characters, we're basically saying that most of the characters get dumbed down and flattened into a simple trait. Because the characters have no depth and only make weird faces, it no longer resonates with the mature audience. When you see the more recent episodes like Swimming Fools, where Squidward basically just envies SpongeBob and Patrick because they're having fun in the pool. Squidward wants it too, but his ego is too high to simply admit or to ask them to join in. So he's sneaking in by night, disguised as a rubber toy, and somehow ends up getting beaten up by SpongeBob and Patrick. That's such a childish thing to do. It's the equivalent of wanting your friend's toy, but you're too embarrassed to simply ask for it. What's even more sad, this episode doesn't really have a meaningful conversation. Just the three of them screaming and beating Squiddy to a pulp. The show even got so far by bringing all of their moms to the Krusty Krab in the episode Momageddon, in the event of Bring Your Mom to Work Day. SpongeBob, Krabs, and Squidward's moms all come to Krusty Krab and basically take over the whole business to their liking. The three of them are scolded and put down in a shame corner just to watch all of their mothers dictating their job. If you're ever trying to do dishes or basically any chores in your house as a kid, then you know very well what that feels like. The characters don't feel like adults anymore. In the early season, while SpongeBob was goofy, he just felt like an optimistic adult with childish hobbies. But now everyone just feels like a kid in an adult's body. They're clearly pointed towards kids and kids only. Many mature fans from the earlier days won't relate to the new SpongeBob. The show became worse because they've removed the spirit of what connected the show to adults. And the worst thing is, SpongeBob is still on the air. There's Camp Coral, The Patrick Star Show, new seasons every year. But should it be? Many fans feel like the heart of the show was lost after season 3. Some called it a decline. Some even gave up on it. They said that everything after is a franchise, not a story. SpongeBob could easily become a cult classic, like Avatar: The Last Airbender, even more. And maybe that's okay. SpongeBob, like everything else, got corporatized once his name got massive. Because by then, it wasn't just a show, it was a culture, a meme machine, a nostalgic comfort zone. Even the bad episodes couldn't erase the genius of the early ones. But the souls still live, on our screens, in our memes, and in your heads. That's why SpongeBob stuck with us. Not because we stayed kids, but because the show grew with us. And when it didn't, at least the memories did. It became emotional shorthand, for stress, for burnout, for awkwardness, or simply for nostalgia. Well, at least the first 3 seasons. So was SpongeBob ever really for kids? Technically, yes, but spiritually? Nah. It was for every adult stuck flipping patties, hating their boss, and trying to laugh through the chaos, at least in the old days. You know, we keep mentioning how bad the modern SpongeBob is in our recent video, but those were nothing close to what we're going to show you next time, because we're going to talk about the worst modern episode of SpongeBob.